So, first thing I'll warn you about is this video I'm going to have to use both the controller and the mouse pad on the computer. So, enjoy that. Anyways, there's a new ship in the game available for rent, and being a fan of American battleships, as I am, I rented it. And it's actually a different version, a later version, if you will, of this ship, the West Virginia. The West Virginia was a Colorado-class battleship, very similar to the preceding Tennessee class. If you look, they have a very similar overall profile. Look at the bow, look at the hull structure. Looks very similar. The difference between the two of them is the West Virginia, being a Colorado-class battleship, was a member of the first class of battleships the U.S. Navy had that had 16-inch guns. You can see them here. She's got four 16-inch, two guns per turret, 16-inch guns in those turrets. Whereas the preceding Tennessee class had, each turret had three 14-inch guns. Now, after the attack on Pearl Harbor, West Virginia was heavily damaged during the attack. Fires, sunk at her mooring, just like California and some of the other ships. Unfortunately, with loss of life, but fortunately, not damaged to the point where she could not be salvaged. And in fact, after she was surveyed, it was determined that not only could she be refloated and towed out of the berth, she could actually be brought to the dry dock, made seaworthy, and brought back to the United States, continental United States, to be refit. So when that was going to occur, the Navy had an issue on its hand, because it had to figure out what these older battleships, these are all called what they referred to as the standard battleships, meaning that they all met standard specifications with minor upgrades. I already showed you the differences in the guns. But being standard battleships, they were most importantly all supposed to cruise at the same about 21 knot speed. So they would form a consistent battle line, which was considered very important by the Navy back in the 1910s, 20s, and 30s. So, being a standard battleship, she was slower than some of the newer battleships, fast battleships, if you will, that were brought about, such as, where's the North Carolina? North Carolina was the first fast battleship the United States Navy made. The North Carolina, it was followed by the South Dakota class ships like Alabama and Massachusetts, shown here. And then after the South Dakotas, like the Massachusetts, they were followed by the Iowas, like the Iowa, the Missouri, New Jersey, and the Wisconsin. The granddaddies, right? So anyways, we had these older battleships. They never were going to go as fast as the fast battleships. So they were never going to be able to escort carriers, which was one of the many roles that the fast battleships were assigned. So what are we going to do with these things? Well, they're still valuable, and the reason they were still valuable is we knew the Pacific campaign was going to involve island hopping, amphibious assaults on islands, strongholds. So one of the things that the battleships could do is they could provide second-line ship-to-ship service. They could provide anti-aircraft service, but most importantly, they could also provide shore bombardment capabilities. So that was very, very important for people doing amphibious operations, especially the Marines. Have a ship offshore with the guns this big that could bust bunkers and take out enemy fortifications, even enemy tanks and personnel if they had to. So the problem with doing this, and what Pearl Harbor illustrated for everybody, was that the things like the deck armor and the torpedo defense system were not going to be adequate, were woefully inadequate, actually, for these older ships. So that's where the modifications came in after the Pearl Harbor attack. When she went back, West Virginia and some of the other ships went back to the West Coast, they were modified into something that looked like this. We already had a ship like this in the game. The California was very similar to this, but this is what the West Virginia ended up looking at like. So we'll look here and then go back to the other ship. Look at the difference. The older 5-inch guns you can see there, some of them anti-surface, some of them anti-aircraft, the smaller ones up top, and then you went here. So this is where the mouse is going to come in, so I apologize. But you've got twin 5-inch 38 caliber mounts. You've got 40 millimeter quad 40 millimeter, so 4 guns per mount here. Oh, the game's doing that thing where it zooms me in or zooms me out. Well, let's see if I can fix it. No, it's not letting me. Oh, here we go. We're back. Zooming in, zooming out. So quad 40 millimeters, and then everything else is 20 millimeters. Look at the machine guns on this thing. Look at the anti-aircraft guns on this thing. Quite the upgrade, huh? So one of the reasons it did that, obviously, is because she was going to be sitting offshore. Planes can be launched from land-based airfields. They could attack the ship. She had to shoot down anything that was going to attack her and possibly compromise her fighting capability. One of the more noticeable things that happened to these types of ships when they were refit, if you look at it from the top, let's go back to the original, and now to the modification. Look how much wider the ship is. And if you look close, you can see why. If you look here and here on either side, you see they added to the width of the ship. Well, those are what that's referred to as the torpedo bulges, and they did this for a couple of reasons. The first and most obvious, when I say torpedo bulge, is yes, it's part of the torpedo defense system. It's basically a void that the torpedo hits that and damages that and doesn't damage the inner part of the ship. That's the simplest way I can put it. The other thing it adds a lot of extra reserve buoyancy to the ship, which is good because not only did they add all these anti-aircraft guns, they also added a substantial amount of deck armor. So if the ship was ever attacked by dive bombers, the bombs would not penetrate the deck, and that was a lesson learned from the Pearl Harbor attack. They didn't want a repeat of that, especially after taking all the time and effort to refurbish a ship like this to get it to this type of fighting condition. The refurb for West Virginia, because she was so heavily damaged, actually took almost all the way to 1945 to accomplish. It wasn't until, I believe, late 1944 that she actually rejoined the fleet and was able to resume fighting. So the ship in the game, if we want to talk about that right now, much like she's a Tier VI battleship, much like her earlier version, she's powerful, but she is consistently inconsistent. The anti-aircraft capabilities, you see it has the anti-aircraft booster up here. That is very nice if you're going up against a carrier. There's a Russian carrier out right now, the Chokolov or Chocolate. I don't know. I can't pronounce it. I can't even pronounce the American ships, never mind the Russian ships. But anyway, there's a Russian carrier out right now that's really tearing it up. And so I've gone up against that thing a few times in this, and it's been nice to see those planes splash into the ocean. The main guns are powerful, but like I said, they're inconsistent. So one salvo goes right where you want it to be, and the other salvo goes a ship length away. So keep that in mind. I was originally running the same commander, which is basically William Sims. I have a guise on it. Lady Liberty. I was running this, my William Sims commander. Played around with this. I also had Azure Lane, New Jersey on here for a while. I always run accuracy and turret traverse because I move the ship around a lot. But I played around with some of these settings. I wasn't getting the performance I liked. And the other thing that you'll notice in this ship, where it has that basically a mountain with a bunch of anti-aircraft guns. That's what the superstructure resembles to me. A mountain with a bunch of anti-aircraft guns mounted to it. You'll see that this ship takes a lot of damage very quickly. So getting into brawls is not ideal. But if you got to do it, you got to do it. But one of the other things I noticed with this William Sims Lady Liberty commander is I seemed like I was always running out of heals and running out of health, and that equals dead ships. So I switched my commander. I finally found a commander for old Optimus Prime that I think the ship, or a ship for the commander Optimus Prime, I should say, I think is like fits him to a T. And it's not only do you get the heals back faster, he's a brawling commander, so he's similar to Willis Lee, but not only do you get the heals back faster, you get more of them. So with this build, you get 5 heals. A lot of my brawling commanders, before I get off of this, I'll run this one. I'll sacrifice the accuracy because I always run Azure Lane Scharnhorst for more accuracy. So if I put this on, it knocks my accuracy, my dispersion down 3 points, but the Azure Lane commander bumps it up by almost 4, so I'm still better than I would be otherwise. And I just grin and bear it, so to speak. Here I wouldn't recommend doing that because the ship is so inconsistent. I'd shudder to think about the shots you would miss, and you're going to see that in some of my videos. The shots that you would think that you would otherwise hit with 16-inch guns and destroy your enemy, and it doesn't work out here. So that's the commander I run. I'm running the standard camouflage that goes with the ship, and I got a few games here I'm going to show you, but I hoped that you guys would enjoy the history stuff here. She's a very good looking ship. She's one of my favorites, my favorite being USS Pennsylvania. But she's one of my favorites. Again, very similar to the California overall, but it's a testament, I think, to what we were able to accomplish back during the war as to how damaged this ship was. I'll put some links down in the video description, how damaged this ship was, but it was able to be raised, and not only raised, brought back better than it ever was, and brought the fight back to the Japanese. In fact, if I remember right, she was one of the ships in Tokyo Bay during the surrender ceremony. So this is the West Virginia 44, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Alright, thank you.